Users flooded into the site. The TV campaign was wildly successful at driving in-market prospective car buyers onto the site. And after using the TrueCar tools, they were informed, empowered, and that led to a more confident buyer that purchased a vehicle a higher percentage of the time and was measurably more satisfied with that experience. And for all of my rantings, and some of you may have seen my, I think Bernie Brenner calls it my body of work, or is that Stewart? I'm not sure, but my team calls it my body of work. They have to deal with it every day. About the free market and the supply and demand in the free market finding equilibrium, we forgot the most important thing: balance. TrueCar was that teenager in the red Camaro, and I was absolutely certain we were right. And when you think you know it all, criticism is hard to hear. Worse is what we learned by studying the data, and that is that prior to the end of last year, TrueCar was actually quite irrelevant, which sort of hurts as an entrepreneur. And it certainly hurts as a 7-year-old company, but that's a fact. I think the dealers that were on our program up and until that time saw our volume as largely incremental. And when TV hit, everything changed. 10% of your volume being incremental, somewhat tolerable, became 20, 25, and in some cases 40% of the introductions at the dealership. And what was incremental then became core. So here's a little bit more data. Prior to Q4 of last year, dealers on our system updated their pricing and interacted with our dealer pricing tools relatively infrequently. In large part, it's because the tool was static and boring, but more importantly, it's because TrueCar was irrelevant. Objectively speaking, dealers were simply using the age-old market techniques of intuition to price their cars on the TrueCar platform. And oddly, the dealers that naturally have a lower cost would use TrueCar. The bottom line is that if your pricing was already good, then you tended to embrace the tool. The problem actually starts right here again in October. Discounting. When dealers began to engage our tool, because the consumer began to embrace and we started to have awareness, discounting started to arise. 60% in the last quarter of the year alone. Now, it's worth pointing out that TrueCar has never operated as an auction, and more accurately, never operated as a reverse auction. Auctions tend to be efficient bidding platforms that are iterative, and it forces buyers and sellers to iterate until they find a market clearing price. And TrueCar enables dealers to set their own prices and make upfront one-to-one offers with customers. However, despite this, TrueCar has definitely unleashed the same psychology that exists in a reverse auction. The result is that TrueCar has enabled an acceleration of a race to the bottom. Mike Jackson called it a death spiral, and he was right. So why did it happen, and what can we do about it? The issue is much bigger than TrueCar, we believe. Competing with each other on the singular dimension of price is what's killing auto retail. And while TrueCar has taken much of the blame for it, TrueCar can actually be the very thing that helps to address this issue. The most powerful fact about TrueCar is that information is power. Statistically speaking, an informed consumer buys a car a higher percentage of the time. Statistically speaking, an informed consumer saves time and money. If a first-time car buyer can go online and learn in under a minute that $24,500 for a Prius Package 2 in Los Angeles is a fair, good, or great deal, and then they're presented with an upfront price that is less, they take it. What if, as dealers, you could tap into that same power? Dealers should also have the information needed to make informed, independent decisions, and in our arrogance, we failed to empower you, the dealer, with the same power as we provided the consumer. And I'll be the first to admit it, that as a company, we've always had a consumer bias, because it starts with the notion that consumers are fearful about the car buying process.